Hello everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Cooking with Camp. I think it is very exciting today because we have a special guest. We are traveling for a week with 5-star celebrity chef Ben Starr.
Hardly, more like washed up reality TV star chef.
Not so washed up. He was truly on MasterChef Season 2, placed number 5, did a beautiful, beautiful job. But he also has a really great YouTube channel with everything. You got to check it out, and we're going to put a link up here, but you really, really need to check it out. He's got such a great way with food. But without further ado, let's bring on Chef Ben Starr.
Hello! Hi, everybody!
Thank you so much, A, for saying, hey, let's go traveling for a week. But mostly, thank you so much for saying we should do a cooking video.
Well, because I love cooking with friends, of course.
So fantastic. I will be the sous chef. Sous is French for below the chef. So I will be the sous chef for the master chef of the day. So Ben Starr came up with the menu. So what are we having tonight?
So tonight we are going to have a really unique salad. It's actually a gnocchi salad. So underneath the nice, crisp, fresh, bright salad, which is going to have arugula and some local peaches and fennel, all that kind of good stuff. Underneath there, we are going to have a handmade goat cheese and caramelized onion gnocchi, which is actually radically easier to cook than most people think. We're going to make it all from scratch by hand, and you're going to love it.
And we're going to talk about that whole thing while you're tenting. Ben is a tenter, and he says over and over, which I try to say for campers and tenters too, you don't have to eat, you can have exciting food while you're tent camping.
Absolutely, so, there's no reason to suffer.
So those couple of things we're foraging from the woods for dinner, we're going to first go off in the woods and find these things. So stay tuned, we'll be back in just a few minutes, but follow us to the woods.
Yep.
Chef Ben Starr.
Yes.
Remind us what we are foraging for your recipe.
So while I was exploring on this warm stream uphill from my tent this morning, I found wild mint and I found watercress. And both of those are going to go great in the salad that we're doing on top of the gnocchi. So I figured we would grab some of these wild ingredients and incorporate them into the main dish.
So those things, they always grow by water?
Watercress is almost always growing in water, right? And then wild mint typically only grows in fairly moist areas, and because there's this perennial warm stream here, it creates an interesting microclimate. You wouldn't normally find wild mint, particularly like later in the fall or certainly in the winter, because it's an annual. It dies out and then comes back. But because this water is always 90 degrees Fahrenheit year round,
it's a spring.
There's always watercress and always fresh wild mint growing here year round, which is very unique.
There's something else I know about you. You are a mushroom hunter, forager. And there's a word for that, like an ornithologist. What is a mushroom hunter?
Avid mushroom collector is called a mycophage.
Mycophage,
yes.
Chef Starr, and check out the t-shirt.
Yes.
But enough for mushrooms, but I had to ask because I know that's your forte.
Yep.
All right, let's go forage. Come on.
Okay. So you've got both of these species that we're looking for growing right next to each other. So this is the wild mint. And crush that and give it a smell here.
Oh.
This is the most pungent mint you've ever tasted, right?
Oh, it really is.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And we've seen this earlier while we were soaking at some of the pools, but the leaves were much smaller because it was growing in the shade. We've got a little bit of a clearing here, so this is a much fuller...
It's like menthol, too.
Right.
I mean, this is strong.
It's very, very intense, super concentrated. And then we've got this wild watercress here, and when I'm harvesting watercress, its roots are basically growing in mud, and so you don't want to pull it straight out because you'll remove it by the roots. See how delicate those roots are, right? So we're just going to take the tops of it. That's a more sustainable way to forage these. And also, did you taste this?
I did have one.
So this is very much more intense than the watercress you get in the supermarket, right?
Right.
So we don't need a lot of this to accent the flavor in the salad, otherwise it would overpower this. Like, can you imagine an entire salad of that?
Oh, that's
it would be
tasty.
inedible, right? So just a little bit is going to add a lot of pungency to sort of counteract the sweetness of the peaches that we're going to have in there, and it's going to be a really lovely flavor mix.
I like counteracting.
Oh yeah.
I like acting. Acting up. And so far I like foraging.
It's fun!
All right, so can I get over here and just strip some of these leaves off?
Some leaves, and
because a little will go a long way with this too, right?
Huge way. That is very, very pungent.
Oh my God, I can smell it as I'm pulling it.
Yeah.
All right, we are back from the forest, from our foraging, and now we're back in the RV, and we're going to talk about the ingredients for the meal tonight. So,
Yes.
Ben, what are the ingredients here for the gnocchi? Let's start with that.
All right, so we're starting with a base of goat cheese and some caramelized onions that I've chopped up really nice and fine. That's going to make our puree that we set with eggs and flour and a little bit of salt and pepper.
So do you keep this in the refrigerator until the last minute so it's nice and firm? Or do you like it soft a little bit?
It sort of depends on whether you prefer it firm or soft, but it's going to soften as we mix it up.
Got it. So, flour, eggs. Was ist this? What is this?
These are caramelized onions, and originally the plan for the dinner tonight was to have this as a roasted garlic and goat cheese chèvre. And so...
Beautiful.
Yeah, but I pulled the wrong thing out of my freezer as I was packing my cooler and brought caramelized onions instead of roasted garlic. But we chopped them up nice and fine, and they'll still make a delicious gnocchi.
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper, easy. For la salade.
Yes.
The salad topping.
Yeah, so we're starting with a base of arugula, and then to complement that, we've got the wild greens that we just foraged.
Once again, pre-washed, pre-done, so easy for camping.
Super easy.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
And then our wild greens that we foraged with a... And we definitely washed those really, really well because it's a truly wild ingredient. That's the wild mint.
And we got our...
And the watercress.
Watercress, beautiful. Yep. Look at that watercress, baby, from the... Gorgeous.
And then we've got some scallions we're going to add. We've got some toasted hazelnuts right there. And then this is some fennel that I shaved really thin at home so I didn't have to bring my mandolin. I really like fennel thinly shaved.
Shrink wrapped and all that, so it's ready to
go.
go.
And then, of course, we've got some olive oil for our cooking. And then I've got a homemade dressing, which is a shallot vinaigrette. So shallots, homemade red wine vinegar, good olive oil, salt, and pepper.
So it's nice to pre-make a few things,
Absolutely.
Right?
The more you can pre-make before camping, the better.
And let's talk about these very nice, soft Palisade peaches. So go ahead.
No offense to the entire state of Georgia or to the Texas Hill Country where I'm from, who think they grow the best peaches. The best peaches in the United States of America come from Colorado.
So they claim to be sweeter and juicier because of the long, sunny Colorado days and the cool, sunny Colorado.
And they're certainly
cool
larger.
nights.
They just picked a world record Palisade peach just a couple of days ago.
So that's going to be grilled, right?
Yeah, we're just going to saute them in the pan, get a little bit of caramelization on the outside.
All right. So let's get the gnocchi started, right?
Okay. Yep. Let's go.
All right. Here we go. Before we start making the gnocchi and cutting up for the salad, you know that I always cook with wine, or cook with beer, or cook with anything else I have on hand. But today we're cooking with infused vodka. So this is your first recipe. This is your first fun thing that Ben Starr told me about because we're in the country. I mean, in the mountains and woods. What is this, Ben?
So in keeping with the foraging theme, we have a beautiful young spruce tree just outside of their RV here. And every spring, spruce trees put out a little bit of new growth, and those tips in the springtime are tender. You can actually put them in salad. You can toss them in a pan with a light saute, and they're delicious. But this time of year, we're mid-September now, those have gotten a bit woody, but they still have a lot of delicious, like, volatile oils. And so you can toss some of these spruce tips right here into your vodka, shake it up a bit, let it sit for a few days, and it infuses your vodka with this beautiful, bright, fresh, alpine flavor. It almost tastes like gin.
And since we're not here for a few days, and we just thought about this a few hours ago, I crush these little buds to just break up the oil to get it in there. I've been shaking it every now and again, and it smells nice and delicious. So I'm going to make and shake, a little bit noisy, but I'm going to, a little shaky cocktail and start up the cameraman and the two chefs drink, and then Ben's going to get started getting the gnocchi rolling, so when you hear the noise, whatever, and we'll talk for a little bit about other stuff, but give me a minute
to get a drink.
Let me get the drink going. All right. You always want ice at a campground, don't you? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So, another little fun thing, I have these stainless steel ice cubes. I use them in wine, I use them in cava, champagne, bubbly, white wine. I use them in a drink that's shaken or whatever. I also put 3 or 4 in the bottom of my margarita glass and a few other ice cubes on top. We don't make that much ice, and we don't need to, because these go back in the freezer tomorrow and freeze, and they're an ice cube again. So there's a tip for, like, space, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I can smell it. I can smell it. All right, here we go, just like on TV. Not as hot as some bartenders out there, but if it gets cold, that's the only goal, right? Here we go, guys. Drizzle, drizzle. Uh-oh, someone might be cheated. Maybe. No, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty... Oh, and all the little needles are stuck in the shaker. How convenient. There we go. All right, Chef Ben Starr.
Magnificent.
What do you think? Cheers.
Fabulous. Cheers. That is delicious.
Wow.
Right?
This was only like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah. But you did so good with the bruising, and then I've been shaking it like crazy every time I got through there, so.
And it does, I mean, it was vodka, now it's stepping towards gin.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
good.
very similar.
All right, so what is the sous chef doing today?
You're going to break down some scallions, and they can go in the bowl for the salad. And then slice the peaches. You don't have to peel them. They're going to go into the saute pan before they go into the bowl. So just get those nice and sliced up and the pits removed. And we're going to go from there.
Sounds good.
Now, here's the deal with gnocchi. All of the gnocchi that you buy in the grocery store is garbage. It's just garbage. It's not good. It's not delicious. And most people boil it. Never boil your gnocchi. That's ridiculous.
Guilty as charged. But I'm here to learn from Chef Ben Starr.
Of course. Well, the stuff that you buy, the prepackaged stuff in the grocery store, you can either roast in the oven, tossed in olive oil, 425 degrees for 20 minutes or so, or you can just put it straight in the pan and cook it, get a nice brown crust on the side. When you boil it, the texture gets kind of gummy and weird, right?
It does.
Yeah. Now, when you make gnocchi at home, it's super, super easy to make. People are terrified of it, just like they're terrified of making pasta, but you've made pasta and you know exactly how easy it is, right?
It's not hard.
Gnocchi is super simple, and you can make it from any kind of smooth puree or paste. So the sky is the limit. You can roast down some carrots and puree those. Turnip and rutabaga makes my favorite gnocchi. Turnip and rutabaga with some Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese is magnificent.
Oh, that's what this is, pureed.
That's, yes. So
caramelized onions.
Anything that you can turn into a puree, you can then turn into gnocchi using this kind of rough framework, which is basically 1 egg and half a cup of flour to a cup of puree.
Got it.
All right, so that's it. That's all you have to remember, and then you'll never need a recipe for gnocchi again.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to start with this chèvre, or goat cheese. This also works really beautifully with ricotta. And if the puree that you are using happens to be really damp, like if you'd roasted or boiled some beets or turnips or carrots or anything like that, it's best to spread that puree out on some paper towels because that'll absorb a little bit of the extra moisture. And what we're fighting with, we're trying to get a texture on the gnocchi that's creamy and delicate instead of chewy, right? And the more liquid is in the gnocchi base, the more the flour gets hydrated, it turns into gluten, and it makes it chewy, and that's what we want to avoid. So we want to start with the driest puree possible, and the chèvre is super dry, right?
Oh, you're doing the whole, what is that?
I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Why not?
Why not?
Everybody loves cheese.
Yes. And then, so as I had intended to bring roasted garlic, and I didn't, this caramelized onion puree is not as smooth as I'd like it to be. If I was cooking at home in my kitchen, I'd put that in my food processor or Vitamix or something like that. But, you know, we're camping, so it doesn't have to be perfect, right?
Exactly.
So we're going to add some of that as well. And this is going to be our puree.
And who even brings caramelized onion to a campground. So yeah, we'll be satisfied with the puree, don't worry.
So I'm just going to get this nice and smooth here, and while I do that, you can work on cutting up your veggies, and then we'll...
And I have some questions for you, because you are a tent camper.
Yes.
Now, clearly, you prepped a few things before you left.
Yes.
So, do you kind of plan, I'm gone for 4 nights, and I'm going to eat out 1 night, and blah, blah, blah. So, do you plan like your little meals? And then you kind of go, you know, I'm not going to sit and caramelize onions at a campground, so I'm going to do this in advance. I'm not going to...
I do as much of my food prep in my home kitchen as I can, where I've got a dishwasher and a roof over my head, and I'm not having to scramble for things.
And you don't want to have tons of dishes and stuff to wash at a camp. You've got your basics anyway.
Yeah, and then I'll often vac seal that with my vac sealer, but if you don't have that, you can just put it in a Tupperware or what you need to do to bring. And then also, things that freeze well, you can go ahead and freeze, and that helps keep your cooler cool for the first several days of your camping as it thaws out, and then when it's time to cook, you just open the bag and heat it up.
So you read my mind, because my next question is, since you're out of your car and out of coolers, how to keep things cool? Do you do big blocks of ice? Do you buy a bag from the campground every couple of days? Do you pre-freeze what can be frozen so it is helping?
Block ice is ideal when you have access to it, but not everybody sells block ice. So when you don't, you just use your cooler. Now, they do make some really cool bags that I discovered through Burning Man, where you take the ice out of the commercial bag it comes in, you put it in this giant Ziploc bag that's real sturdy, it's got a spout on the bottom of it. So you don't have ice melting into your cooler and forming a puddle at the bottom and contaminating all of your food. It melts, and the ice itself is food grade. So then you've got a spigot at the bottom of that bag, and you use it as water.
Right, smart.
So that's one of my favorite techniques and tricks to use when I'm camping as well.
Do you want the tops and the bottoms of this?
Yeah, we can do it all. That's fine. Also, when I have cooked and sealed things in a vac bag, a nice trick is to, instead of having to cut open that bag, dump that pre-prepared food into a pot to reheat, I'll just put the Ziploc bag in a pot of boiling water, and then I don't have to have pure water. I can just take water from the creek or the pond, boil it, and then you pull the bag out and you serve directly from the bag. Then the bag goes into the trash and you don't have to wash your pot.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, nice trick.
Smart little trick.
All right, so I've got probably about 2 cups of this nice thick puree. So since I've got about 2 cups of that, I'm going to use 2 eggs. So
about a cup, an egg per cup of...
1 egg per cup of puree. Yeah, that's kind of the standard.
So that person who's not going to be making from scratch gnocchi at a camp because they're just stepping up their culinary game,
sure,
and they're going to buy the store-bought stuff, which is crap and horrible and you hate. What is a little secret or something to? They're not going to boil it. They're still can
definitely
fry it?
Don't boil it, because that just creates a terrible texture, a terrible flavor, and a lot of waste of water. Having to bring it, you're wasting fuel bringing your water to a boil, right? So you just put it straight into your saute pan
with olive oil,
plenty of fat. Can be olive oil, can be butter, can be bacon fat. Like I cook a lot with bacon fat because I cook breakfast with bacon, and then I've got the fat that I don't want to throw away, so I use that as a cooking fat. But yes, plenty of fat in the pan.
So I always thought of gnocchi as like a pasta, but it's really not like a pasta that needs to boil a little bit.
Right. And
that looks great.
So as long as you're cooking it for long enough in the pan, it cooks all the way through. It gets a really nice crust on the outside, almost like a tater tot, but a much better texture on the inside than if you had boiled it and it had absorbed a bunch of water, and then it becomes gummy and kind of thick and tough.
It's just like...
Oh.
Did you say that squirt? Do you smell this? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
I just... Yum. Palisade peaches are my favorite. And once you have tried one, good luck finding them if you don't live in Colorado or surrounding states, though, because they do not send their peaches out. They eat them all here. One of the extraordinary things about the Palisade peach is that growing season is so long, because it warms up down in the desert in Palisade, but it's also high desert, so you get 90, 95 degree days, which are important for the peach ripening, but at night it cools back down into the 50s, which extends the season, so before the peach begins to ripen, it has a lot longer time to grow. Peach season here does not begin until mid-July, and it runs until the end of September, and you won't find that kind of peach season anywhere else in the United States. But because they have that extended time to grow, that's when you get these big, beautiful peaches filled with lots of sugar and lots of beautiful bright acid, and they're just, I mean, it's incredible.
You never know, probably in the Midwest and the South, what the season and heat, and it's not as regular as a desert climate, really.
Yep. All right, so now I'm going to add some flour to my base puree that already has the eggs. I'm actually going to give it a quick taste here, because you want to season it at this point, and you want it slightly saltier than the final product, because we're going to be adding flour to this puree, which is going to dilute the seasoning a bit. So I'm going to add just a little bit more salt to that. And again, like, you can make gnocchi with any smooth, thick puree.
That ricotta and the sweetness of that caramelized onion is like,
isn't it nice?
Really great.
Yeah.
Of course you know that. I'm just telling the viewers that it tastes really good.
All right, so now I'm going to add, now officially the rule is about half a cup of flour to every cup of puree. So in theory, I would add about a full cup of flour to this 2 cups of puree.
Okay.
The more flour that you add, the tougher the final gnocchi will be. So you want to add as little flour as possible. And because we are not going to poach these gnocchi, and you never have to poach them, the less flour you add, the more delicate they are, and they can break apart in your pan. The store-bought stuff is thick and tough, right?
Right.
So...
and then it gets slimy.
Right.
Like, there's no in between.
Right. And so we're going, because we're going straight from gnocchi to pan to plate, I'm going to make this gnocchi a little bit thicker so it's easier to roll out and handle, and it's more stable in the pan without breaking up. But if you go on the softer side of the puree and add less flour to it, your final texture is going to be a lot better because it's much lighter and fluffier on the inside. But then you risk them breaking apart in the pan when you put them in there. So the trick, if you're doing this at home, is to use as little flour as possible just until you can get the gnocchi formed, and then chunk them in the freezer for a minute, well, for an hour or 2 hours or 6 months, I always have formed gnocchi in bags in my freezer ready to go. And then they go straight from the freezer into the pan, so the outside crusts over before the inside is fully thawed, and that allows you to have this fluffy, pillowy texture on the inside that's just utterly extraordinary, and you don't have to poach, which really destroys the texture of the gnocchi. Yeah.
I'm anxious to see, because there's so much cheese in this, what happens when I've seen this, so I'm anxious to see what it does in the sauté pan.
Right. Well, that's what the eggs are for, because the eggs will set, this puree as we go. You also
kind of need a little bit of that melting to kind of...
For sure.
Get the searing or the browning a little, maybe.
So you want to stir it very gently. The more you stir it, the more you develop the gluten. And if you're baking bread, you want gluten. But if you're making something nice and tender like gnocchi, you don't want to overdevelop that gluten. So stir fairly gently, not in a hard circle, just kind of drag the dry ingredients through the wet.
How much gluten in vodka?
In theory, the distillation process for vodka removes all of the gluten. So vodka, even if it is originated from wheat, is a gluten-free product, but I don't think they're allowed to fully label that.
That was a side note, because it is part of the recipe tonight. May I?
You may. So, see, now this is about the texture that you would want. It's very delicate, a little bit tacky, if you're going to freeze these before they go into the pan. All right? But if I tried to form these into gnocchi now and put them in the pan, they might break apart. They may not be able to hold together. So I'm going to incorporate a little bit more flour, but you can see that this has like formed itself into a cohesive dough. It's just a little bit on the sticky side for us to...
That's like cookie dough that you could eat without cooking it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you kind of don't want the raw flour, but maybe you don't care. But this really reminds me of eating cookie dough. Like, do we have to cook it?
Yeah.
Here, let me get this out of your way.
Just a little.
I am the sous chef. Although I'm also who are the guys, I can't remember, in a hotel that stewarding, who keep everything clean and tidy.
Yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. So
slightly shift and change.
I think we are just about ready here.
You're just touching that flour to a moist spot to just pick up the flour.
Yes. And we will continue to work the dough a little bit as we get the gnocchi formed. So I'm just going to do this right here on my cutting board. We've got our gnocchi dough right there. And the trick to working with this dough, which is still quite sticky and damp, is to make sure there's always flour on the outside of the dough, right? The inside can be as sticky as we want it to be, as long as there's flour between our hands and the dough and the cutting board. Then we're not going to end up with a crazy, horrible, sticky mess.
Let me grab that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Making room for the roll.
So I'm just going to kind of bring this together into like...
This.
Yeah, done with that.
We're done with this.
I will need the flour still.
Got it. You want the fork, spoon still?
No, I shouldn't need the...
Got it. Making room.
Okay. So I pat this out into a little rectangle here, and then I start dividing it.
Do you make it a point when you're packing to get some of that pre-washed, pre-bagged stuff like I
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do as much pre-prepped as possible so that I have as little to do in camp as I need to do.
And from a cleaning standpoint, especially from a tender standpoint, you want to just make it easy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so we're just going to start with one of these little pieces here. I'm going to go, we sterilized the surface, so I'm going to go ahead and
we washed everything down, folks. I mean, you want to make your whole table your area.
Yeah.
Anyway, so any clean kitchen.
Okay, so make sure we have a good floured surface, and then make sure we get flour. So we've got some cut surfaces there that don't have flour on them, right?
Right.
So we really want to make sure we get some flour all around that, and then you just gently start to roll it until you get it into a nice tube, and then you start rolling it out on the surface. And you're going to spread your fingers as you're rolling it. And this is very little pressure. We're not pushing on this much at all because it is super, super delicate. You can kind of squeeze it and open it up a little bit, whatever you need to do to get your tube about as thick as your thumb. You can do it thicker, you can do it thinner, but the traditional shape's about like, thumb width.
May I get my cutting board and try this with you?
Please get your cutting board.
This
I
out.
need you to do that.
All right.
Hope we got enough flour here. Okay,
all right.
So once you've got your basic thumb width, you're going to come in with your cutting device, which I'm just using a bench scraper, and you're just going to cut little portions of it just like that. And these are our final gnocchi. So I'm just going to put them over here on the plate until we've got all our gnocchi formed. And then they're going to go into the skillet.
Pillars.
Yeah.
Cute. Oh, this is...
And, you know, the Italians, you always see the gnocchi that's got, you know, the fork on the side. But in order for your gnocchi to be firm enough to hold that shape of the fork, it's going to end up being tough. So really, it's all about texture. We don't care about that fork, that fork, you know, technique, which is just used to help the gnocchi grab a hold of a sauce or something like that. We're actually not using these as sauce.
It's our base starch sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
How'd I do?
That's very good. Very nice. I'm very, very impressed.
Oh, this is like in Good Morning America
You're
when they have a
gnocchi
TV star
natural.
cooking with a, you know, and they're like, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to have to say that, yeah, this is pretty darn easy.
Yeah, right?
This is pretty easy. That now Paul is going to expect not only fresh hummus, by the way, check his YouTube channel for the world's easiest, most delicious hummus. I honestly watched it and I will not be making hummus again. I mean, buying hummus again.
Yeah.
But now I don't think I'm ever going to
No need to buy hummus.
buy gnocchi again.
Yeah.
This is great.
Right?
Nice.
Now, if you discover you try this recipe at home and your gnocchi just fall apart in your pan, there's no harm in poaching these gnocchi because we have not incorporated too much crazy flour. And you'll just drop them into a pan, not a boiling pot. Absolutely not. Salted water, hot, but not simmering or boiling.
Okay.
Drop the gnocchi in until they float to the surface, which takes about 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's
and then
real quick
straight
and
from there into the fry pan. But because we don't have a huge kitchen to work in here today, we're going to be doing it just in the pan alone. And that is the preferred method, but it requires a little bit more delicate hand because the gnocchi is tender and can easily fall apart.
Fun.
Okay.
I'll just eat that bit. Hey, clean hands, but we're eating among friends.
Yes.
You know.
All right. We are getting full on this plate, so I think let's go ahead and cook up a batch of this.
All right, so we're at the stove because we're going to give these peaches a saute, a little crispy, a little caramelizing.
Highest heat possible for the least amount of time possible. We don't want them to turn into mush, right? So I don't think they're going to be in the pan more than maybe 2 minutes. A little bit of oil, a little bit of salt and pepper, but super, super high heat. And let's wait till that oil is smoking to get the peaches in the pan.
As you know, this is my induction burner. You need an induction pan for that. We intended to use all of Ben's equipment. The rain kind of threw our little thing off, but we still got to eat. So we're inside kind of doing halfy-halfy, but we normally would be sitting out on the picnic table with his propane.
Yeah, tiny little propane
grill.
stove. Uses a little small, thin propane cylinder like you'd use for a kitchen torch. And it works beautifully for searing outdoors while you're camping. Not as big as the traditional camping stove, so it's easier to transport.
How many cookware pieces do you travel with?
I travel with a duffel bag that's about this big,
I saw
and that's
that.
got all of my
That's your
cookware
kitchen.
and my silverware and my serving stuff and all that kind of
And
stuff.
that
That's
doesn't
my
get
kitchen.
unpacked when you go home. That's just
Nope.
your grab and
That's-
go. It's like a toolkit.
Yep, exactly.
Smell the EVO happening.
Yes. And I don't know if you've talked about this before in your cooking videos, but the old adage of, oh, don't cook with good olive oil, it's too good to cook with, is bullshit. Always cook with the best oil you can possibly afford. So if you've got a really nice expensive tin of olive oil and some foodie tells you, oh, adding heat to that is a crime, that's just completely incorrect. Yes, you want to also dress your salad with that good olive oil, but you absolutely want to cook with high quality olive oil if possible. All right, we got some smoke, so let's get those peaches in there.
And not really like a blend, olive oil canola blend or something.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you heard that, folks? Love it.
Yeah. All right. So let's let it sit for just a second.
Lost a couple.
Let it sit for just a second. Well, yeah, we can go ahead and salt and pepper it just a little bit here. And let it sit so we can get a little bit of caramelization on it, and then we'll do one more toss in about 45 seconds, and then maybe one more toss.
I love that. This is how I do Brussels sprouts.
Oh, yeah.
Cut them in half, get the oil hot, leave it.
Yeah.
Don't toss them. Let them char and burn and char and burn and char and burn.
Yep.
And then flip them, char and burn, char and burn.
Yep. Only way to do it. This martini is wonderful.
Tasty. We can call it a martini because it's in that fun-shaped glass.
Yeah, sure, of course, right?
It's a shaker. Very good. You try this at home. Well, if you have an evergreen tree in your backyard.
Any evergreen will work. I just really love the flavor of spruce. It's got a beautiful, delicate evergreen, wintergreen sort of a flavor to it. Just wonderful.
And it needs to be the tender tip.
Just the tender tips, yeah.
Got more oil and moisture probably.
Yep.
How's this?
Let's give it a toss and see how it's going. Okay.
Yeah, not so much. Maybe a little
Well,
longer.
they have so much juice in them.
These
that
especially.
It's hard to,
yeah.
it's hard to do that. Now,
I mean, when I was cutting it, it dripped.
sure.
So.
And if you've got a higher heat cooking oil like avocado oil, you can really get that oil almost to the burning stage before you toss your peaches in. But as your peaches start to leave, like to drop a lot of that liquid, it's about time to go ahead and remove them. So let's.
So you want some of that left in here for your gnocchi, don't you?
Yeah,
juice?
sure.
So I'll try and just scoop out and leave some of that juicy in there. Well, I don't know how well that did. Oh,
That's
the pan's
fine.
still kind of
Yeah,
no,
that's great.
right?
That's great. Okay, so let's do probably a sear temperature like we did before. But we want a lot of fat in the pan to do this method of gnocchi cooking that avoids having to poach them beforehand in water. So we're going to let that come back up here. That happened pretty fast.
What kind of utensil do you want?
My hand.
We're just I mean.
Yeah, we're just gonna jiggle the pan a little bit. So
no touching, right? No touchy.
right, we need to really help these get set up. We want that egg in there to solidify, and the starches and the flour to start bursting, which will hold the little bits of gnocchi together. So we want to set them in the pan with room between each one of them. And we're going to let this go to get a nice crust on the outside. And then once we agitate this pan, we're going to see how firm our particular set of gnocchi are. And if they look like they're real delicate, we'll come in here with a spatula or a fork and turn each one individually to cook on the other side before we pull it out. All right?
So if those loaves, we've got 2 or 3 loaves left, but would you cut them up? If we're not going to use them all, let's say you made enough, would you cut them up, throw them in the freezer, or leave them in a loaf?
No, go ahead and cut them up, put them in the freezer, but on a flat surface like this until they are frozen.
Yeah, so
then you can put them in a Ziploc bag when they're fully frozen. That way it's easier storage in your freezer. And then you can transfer them straight from the freezer into the pan, and it's one of the easiest bases for a meal you can possibly have. It's quicker than pasta, than boiling pasta.
And they're firm
really
too because they're frozen.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to give this a little bit of a shake, and we've got some that are sticking. So let's get a gentle fork here. This is a non-stick pan, so I don't want to do too much. Let's lower the heat just a bit. We do want them browned, but just a little bit less brown than that is more ideal.
And you cannot smell this, but I am smelling the goat cheese. I'm smelling the caramelized onion. Oh God, those are beautiful.
Right?
Oh God.
And they're going to have a really nice crispy crust on the outside, but be super delicate and pillowy and moist on the inside, and it's just, magic.
I just changed my home gnocchi game.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
And if we had started boiling a big pot of water to boil some store-bought gnocchi in, we would probably be at this stage now, pulling the gnocchi out of the boiling water and putting it into the pan to saute. And these are going to have a taste and a texture that's infinitely better than what you'll get from that store-bought crap.
And making that dough or batter, whatever you call it, was very quick and easy.
Super quick. It's laughably easy.
Where are we going to put this? What do you need from me?
Yeah, we'll need a little bowl or a sheet tray or just something to pull those off onto.
To keep it flat?
Yeah, or a plate. That's perfect.
All right. Oh my God, this smells so good. Yeah. We're a cheese family,
Oh, yes.
And I think you've enjoyed some cheese with us. So this cheesy, oniony, oh my God.
Okay, so we're going to take one of these off. Now, the ones in the center have obviously browned more than the ones on the side.
Yep.
So I'm going to take the ones kind of here from the side. I'm just going to cut that open and make sure that it's cooked all the way in. And the way that I do that is to actually put it in my mouth hole. Make sure I'm not tasting any raw, floury, Qantas grossness.
And by cooked in the middle, you mean the egg has set up, right?
Yeah, it's set, and it no longer has a pasty, raw.
Oh, right.
taste, right?
Like an undone cookie.
Like an undone cookie,
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
And so these are doing pretty good.
The sous chef might have to judge.
And these are best immediately out of the pan,
Yeah.
but because we have to do multiple batches, we're not going to have them immediately out of the pan, but
That's tasty.
we'll get as close as we can, right? Have you ever had gnocchi that good before in your whole life?
Unless it was in a restaurant,
Yeah.
certainly not in my house.
Yep.
No. And certainly not in my RV. In the rain at a campground.
Right. Okay, so we're going to scoop these out here and then do the next batch, and we're going to lather, rinse, and repeat until it's all done. And then we might toss the entire batch into the pan just to reheat it a little bit before we put it on the plate.
Because you want that warm base
Yep.
for our cold crisp salad, right?
Yep, exactly.
We've got our peaches that have been grilled. We've got our scallions in here. We're going to throw in our foraged watercress and mint, which is, I mean, mint and peach. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Mom never did that, did they? No. This is why we're growing up and learning more about deliciousness. And here's our how much of this arugula do you think?
I would do 3 handfuls, one for each of us.
Oh, there you are. Serving.
Yeah.
Serving. Serving. Good idea. Again, ladies and germs, did I mention this already? And everyone in between. This is the pre-washed, pre-packaged. So like you open it up or whatever and you shove it back in your cooler, back in your fridge. Easy, easy breezy. I need a cutting device to get at this fennel, another one of my favorite foods. Ben Starr, what did you do to this fennel?
It's just shaved on a mandolin, super thin.
So all the ingredients are in the salad. The arugula, the foraged greens, the charred up, caramelized a little bit peaches, Palisade peaches, the fennel, and Ben Starr made a dressing. Ben, can you tell us what this is?
Yes, this is really great olive oil. It's actually from my friend's orchard in Sicily. And homemade red wine vinegar, which is basically just all the red wine, in case there's ever any red wine left in the bottle. I add to my kind of barrel of continually fermenting vinegars. Salt, pepper, and shallots pureed in the Vitamix, which adds the thickness to it. Little hint of mustard to keep it nice and emulsified, but a very simple fresh dressing. And of course, I make my dressings a full pint at a time, keep it in the fridge, and then you just pull it out of the fridge for 20 minutes before you're going to dress the salad, and you've always got fresh homemade dressing, which is way, way, way more delicious than anything you could ever get in the grocery store.
This is one thing that I will say, that yes, dressing is so easy to make.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone between, olive oil, a vinegar, mustard, salt and pepper, and herb. Pick the ones you want, and just make it. Orange juice. What other random things? Anything, honestly, and just shake the crap out of it.
Yeah.
But when you have, you tell me what emulsification happens when you do olive oil and a vinegar or a citrus or something.
So in the typical ratio where you've got 3 tablespoons of oil to 1 tablespoon of vinegar or acid or lemon juice, citrus juice, beer, anything like that. 3 tablespoons of oil to 1 tablespoon of acidic ingredient will emulsify pretty beautifully when you shake it, but it will separate relatively quickly after that. So if you add an emulsifying agent, which the easiest that everybody's got in their fridge at home is mustard. Mustard helps hold the binding of the emulsification together for a longer period of time.
And the emulsification then gives you this slightly creamy, so it's not like you have the vinegar floating on top of the oil kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you see that? And it stays that way. I mean, I give it a tiny shake just because I want to make sure the ingredients are mixed up. He had it chilled so the oil gets a little solidified. But anyway, there you go. And we're garnishing with these, forget what these...
Those are toasted hazelnuts.
Of course they're toasted, but in advance you can do that at home.
Absolutely. In the microwave.
Oh.
Which is the fastest way to toast nuts, the most even way, and the easiest way to avoid potentially burning your nuts is to toast them in the microwave.
Unless
you're
sitting too close to the campfire.
Yeah.
All right, a little toss here of our salad. Look at that, shiny, delicious, tasty, nutty, fruity. I mean, this arugula's got that tart bite. We got that mint in there, remember? Beautiful, nice. Nice, nice, nice. Very wet, nice salad. So, wait till the plating. It's gonna be good. Here we are, folks. The rain stopped. We're dining out of doors. It's fresh and chilly. We're gonna put a sweatshirt on maybe to eat. But we have hot, delicious gnocchi. Oh my God.
Nice and crispy on the outside.
Caramelized onion. Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And then we top it with that cold salad.
And I'm gonna reach for that. As
And
you all
it's
see.
gonna blow your mind, the juxtaposition of textures and temperatures
the tangy,
and everything.
cheesy,
Yep.
and the sweet and the delicious.
Yep. Get after it.
Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna give a little dilly dollop of our salad. I mean, look at the. Oh, I'm plating, Ben Starr.
No, it's beautiful. You're doing a
am I doing?
magnificent job.
You know, you do it
Sous chef.
slowly.
Yes.
It looks more artistic.
Yes, yes.
Right? So
and
you do
it
it
mounds up like
Yeah.
that.
You do it slowly. And we have slipped onto a nice little Prosecco for dinner because Ben
yes.
likes a bubble like I do. Paul's going to get some red wine. We're going to sit down. We're going to eat the meal of a lifetime. The rain has stopped. We're outside. We are in this beautiful valley, which you can see the storm clouds are hanging around, but it's so lovely out here. Thank you, 5-star chef, celebrity chef
Cheers.
Ben Starr. Thank you so much for the info, the knowledge, the lesson, the recipe, and for inviting us along on your journeys. I'm happy to have you on my channel.
Happy to be here. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Enjoy.